El consumo de leer.
Okay. Is there anyone who is not in the spreadsheet for the teams?
We registered I think very late. I don't know.
Okay, I need you to then write your names on this piece of paper. That you are in the right pool.
No.
Okay, so the first thing we say questions from 1 to 6. What is long-term asset? Examples of long-term assets. What is net working capital? Under which conditions might a company face financial difficulty? What is a financial intermediary? And 3 examples of financial intermediaries. Okay, so get ready. And once I get number 14 in my list, then we will use randomly the first thing. So the idea is that with the presentation, they are going to give, with the answers they are going to provide. Everyone checks the answers you got. So we are sure that we share. It probably won't be exactly the same words, but the idea should be the same, right?
Yeah.
Just give me a second. Okay, so the first theme will be theme number 11. Daniel Alejandro Sugas. Are you going to present something? No.
Manifesting. So I manifest. I want to get sick too.
Okay. Class, are you ready? Because the team is ready.
The first question is define the term long-term assets. They are also called fixed or current assets. And they are the assets that a company can expect to use, replace, or convert to cash in a period of 12 months. And they are usually used for years. And some examples are property, equipment, and plant.
For at least 12 months, right?
Yes.
At least. So 12 months or longer,
Yes.
right? Okay, at least 12 months. All right.
Question number 3 is what is net working capital? And it is the difference between the current assets and the current liabilities. And the larger the number from the net working capital is, the more likely it is for the company to cover the current obligations. And the number 4 is under which conditions my company face financial difficulty. And when the internal cash flow doesn't cover the external investment, and the company may cut on the dividends to increase the retained earnings or search for external investment.
Okay, so the question number 5 is, what is a financial intermediary? So, financial intermediary is a third-party institution that conducts the connection between the individuals that have savings and want to invest, and also the companies, the business. Okay, so for example, well, I think this is the next question. Yes, 3 examples. For example, banks. Banks are good examples of financial intermediaries because they are the connection between the companies and the business, and also between the company and the business and the individuals who want to invest. Also, I think stock exchanges is a good example of financial intermediaries, and mutual funds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have comments, different answers? Would you like to review an answer that you may have maybe slightly different from what was presented? Everything's clear?
Yes.
Okay. The next thing then. Team number 4, María Fernanda Márquez, Juan Manuel García Navarro, Daniela Guadias. I think María Fernanda is on here, right? Yes. So you will answer questions 7 to 12. What is common stock? In which respects are partnerships, units, just like the 13 and ordinary corporation? What is a REIT? What is preferred stock and the difference between short and long-term debt and fixed and floating rate debt? Okay, 7 to 12.
Okay, the first question is, what's common stock? Basically, it's a residual claim of the firm's assets and cash flow. I think it's very clear. Yeah. Okay. And in which respects are partnerships units, just like the shares in an ordinary corporation. When a corporation is a master limited partnership, I think we have this question with. Yes. Okay.
And the number 10 is preferred stock, and the preferred stock is part of the equity of a company, and it's like a stock when the stakeholders has like the company have to pay the dividends, but they are accumulative. For example, if in the past year they didn't receive dividends, they have to pay it in the next year. The number 12 is what is different between short-term and long-term debt. The short-term is any debt that is due within 1 year, while long-term is more than 1 year. Usually the short term is used to finance day-to-day operations, and the long-term debt is often used to finance major purchase or expansion projects.
So you're not going to answer number 8 and 9?
Yes.
Questions 8 and 9?
Yes, more information about the question 8, that is, in which respects are partnership units, just like the shares in an ordinary corporation, is that both partnerships, units, and shares typically provide shareholders with some degree of voting rights and the ability to participate in decision-making process within the entity. However, there are also important differences, such as the legal structure and governance of partnership versus corporations as well as tax implications.
It's what we need to break.
Nine? Okay. What is rate? Rate is the real estate investment trust and is the right to share of the revenue.
Okay, all right, leave it there. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, apart from the explanation of read, which I'm gonna take over, is there any question
Yes,
regarding the other answers? Yes?
the company may have to pay dividends to preferred stockholders. Always.
No. The company is not obliged to pay dividends to any shareholder.
And
But if the company declares and therefore pays a dividend to a common shareholder, then they have to pay all due dividend for the preferred shareholders.
The cumulative dividends only are for preferred stock. For example, for a common stock, it's like, oh, I only pay this dividend for the, but the preferred ones are the cumulative.
Exactly.
they already say that preferred stock may have in specific situation like mergers or current situation. In what situation is
Use?
to issue preferred stock.
Usually for high executives or for the original owners of the firm,
They are not standing.
they are not what, sorry?
Outstanding.
Yes, they are. Both common shares and preferred shares are outstanding shares, right? The difference is that preferred shares have priority on the payment of a dividend over common shareholders, over common stock. Okay, but they may be outstanding, or they may be in treasury. That depends on the will of the company, the desire of the company.
In which situation the firm may issue preferred stock.
For people like high executives, and sometimes they get preferred stock instead of cash for the bonuses. Okay, so because they will go first, they will go before the common shareholders, then that's something that is attractive for the high executives, right? For those people, or for the founders of the company, they keep the right to get a cumulative dividend if any dividend is paid. Okay, so that was preferred stock. Any other question about the rest of the questions except for 9? Yes.
Can you talk the other definition of mutual funds?
A mutual fund is an investment fund. Okay. Well, I won't go to because there is another question that talks about the different types of mutual funds. So and the definition of mutual fund is 25, in question 25. So I won't go through the detail how they work, but any fund, any investment fund question. Is an investment fund an intermediary?
Yes.
It is. Yes, it is a financial intermediary. Can you explain why?
Because they take the money from the people who is saving
Who are?
and then invest the money.
Okay, careful on the wording. Saving applies only for banks. Saving is an insured operation. There is an insurance for the depositors, okay, who place their money in banks. In investment funds, you don't save, you invest. And save and invest are different financial operations which have different consequences. Like, yes?
And for example, I think the banks also invest the money. So the bank could be considered like investment fund.
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
The reason is how they get the money they invest.
Okay.
An investment fund gets money from where? From investors. They do not deposit their money in the investment fund. They buy shares from a company, from a society that is an investment fund, which is a financial institution, a financial intermediary. It's not only a financial intermediary, it's also a financial institution. You should have read about the difference between financial intermediaries and financial institutions. A financial institution is like a higher level financial intermediary, right? So, in a balance sheet, where would I find the money from the investors who bought shares from the investment fund? Where is that money registered? I repeat, where would I find the money investors paid for their shares in the balance sheet of the investment fund?
It's assets because they don't need.
Two. Equity. Yeah.
You said the money.
Yes, and what is the money? It would be equity.
And then the
shares,
cash would
and the
be.
cash, yeah. You're right. You are right. So, people who invest, people who place their money in an investment fund, buy shares and therefore gets equity from the investment fund. People who deposit their money in a bank would find their provision of money where? In which account?
Liability.
See the difference? It's completely different. Saving and investing are completely opposite financial operations. So in the balance sheet of a bank, is the money of the people who deposited their money there. So I am a creditor to a bank, but I am a shareholder for the investment fund. What is the difference between being a creditor and a shareholder?
As creditor, you are owner of the residual claims of the firm.
Can you repeat that, please?
You are the owner of the residual claims of the firm.
In which situation?
In the investment fund where you are shareholder.
Mhm.
And when all of this is paid, you get what is left. In the case of a liability, when you are a creditor, you are the one to get first paid before taxes due.
Other differences, Luis?
Isn't that enough for you? So your deposit, your money at the bank, apart from being insured, apart from having an insurance, 400,000 woodies, that's the insurance in our country, 400,000 woodies, okay? Up to that amount, your deposit is secured. Above that amount, it's not, okay? So the money you have deposited in the bank is a commitment to repay for the bank. You should have your money back. But if you buy shares from an investment fund, where multiple funds is one type. You as an investor don't have a guarantee of repayment. Okay. It doesn't matter how the investment fund is called. It doesn't matter where the investment fund invests. You are a shareholder. The fund is not committed to pay you back anything. You understand the difference? And because you are facing a very high risk as compared to a bank, of course, they have to offer you a higher return. Clear? Okay?
The people who invest in a bank and via pagaré, the beneficiary in the bank weighs
Liabilities.
it also.
But it's not deposits, it's short-term certificates. Pagarés is called I owe you in English. I owe you money. Yeah, that's the name. That's the name. I owe you. Capital letter. I owe you. That's pagarés. Mhm.
Are the UDIs and the UMAs are the same?
No, they are different. UMA is like, they are both virtual currencies. The difference is that UMA is to reflect, apart from inflation, any other market condition that has to do with payroll, with salaries, wages, right? And we have basically wages reference to UMAs, wages and scholarships and pensions and usually amounts of money that have to do with labor commitments. UDI is used for commercial transactions, basically investments and credits. The UDI represents 100% inflation with a delay of 15 days. UMA doesn't necessarily. Did I make myself clear? Yeah. Good. So what is an investment fund? It is a company. Okay, it is a society. But the object, so the function, the activities that they perform is basically raising, look at the word, raising money, which is different from receiving deposits, okay? Raising money from the market in the form of the sale of shares of the company and invest that money into different securities, depending on the investment rules they have. Every investment fund has different rules depending on the objective of the fund. Okay, so the assets they have is basically securities.
Teacher,
Uh-huh.
and which one is like quicker?
Quicker.
Yeah, I mean, for example, investment funds, how quickly do they like make the money bigger by like interest and stuff compared to other companies like I don't know, Coca-Cola?
It depends on the maturity of the securities. For example, if they only invest in money market securities, we read this word in the chapter, right? And you will see growth in less than a year. But if this is a hedge fund, probably investing in long-term government bonds or just equity, it would take probably a decade.
So there's a specific investment funds.
Yes. Every fund has its own objective.
¿Se llaman giros?
No profile, perfil, el perfil del fund. Right? Okay. Did I answer the question?
Yes.
Yes. You did not place a question. Okay. So we will talk about investment funds later because we still have to go through the different types of mutual funds. What is a mutual fund? How we work? But for the time being, is it enough? Yes. Okay, now let's talk about REITs. Uh-huh.
In Spanish is figuras, right?
That's correct. You know what trust is? What is the exact translation? Sometimes we translate it as fund. Yeah, that's the idea. But the exact translation is fideicomiso. Not all trusts are funds, and not all funds are trusts. Okay? But in this case, REITs are funds. What do? They invest in real estate only.
Commercial years.
Pardon me?
Commercial year, real estate.
Any type. Could be commercial, could be residential, could be warehouses, could be only land, could be hotels, could be
Airbnbs.
shopping centers, sorry.
Airbnbs.
Yeah, and any type of accommodation. Yes, that's right. Anything. Could be any type of real estate. Okay, and still the REIT has its own objective. So there are some REITs which are specialized in hotels, some REITs which are specialized in commercial, some REITs that are specialized in industrial, for example, and some that are mixed, have everything. You know, nowadays the fashion is I have a shopping center that has a tower with apartments, and it has at the bottom probably some other retail stores, and there is also some amenities or facilities. So that's a mixed real estate. So the real estate is another investment fund. It's a type of investment fund. So what do? They sell shares, they raise money, they invest the money in the real estate that is the object of activity of the fund, of the trust. That's what they do. And how do they make money? There is a trust here. Why it's called trust is a legal tool that prevents money from being robbed, basically. Because there is a fiduciary, which is usually an intermediary, that keeps tracks of the money. The money entering and going out of the bank accounts is supervised by a financial authority. And the trust, the fiduciary will charge a commission to do that job on your behalf. Okay? So you have a guarantee that the money, the revenues that are gotten by the trust won't be used for other purpose, but paying the expenses of the company and the dividends. All right. So this is the type of collateral. Okay. So the trust is the owner of the real estate, the buildings, the house, the shopping center. Okay. So they are in a way similar to CPOs. Remember CPOs?
Yes.
What is the characteristic of the CPO?
They own property rights.
It's a way to transfer property rights like dividends, right? So you don't have the ownership of the shares, but you are only entitled to receive the dividend. So you, the investor in the real estate investment trust, you are not the owner of the shopping centers or the hotels or whatever real estate. You are only entitled to receive earnings and dividends. And they have a very special regulation in our country because they are obligated to distribute earnings every year. They usually, in practice, they do it 4 times a year, not necessarily at the end of the quarter. Some do it like February, and then May, and then August, and then November, which is not the quarter. But they pay earnings, they pay cash. Practice in our country 4 times a year. Okay. And that is part of the regulation, that is part of their law. And in that way, they are called a hybrid security. Why are hybrid? Because the certificates that are issued by RIC, by the trust, they don't have maturity. In fact, they are not debt, they are equity. In practice, they are not shares. If we could see, let me see if I can open quickly here. Onomatica to show you something.
But it's like company at the end of the day.
It's what, sorry?
It's like the company at the end of the day.
Yes, it is a company. The RIC is a company. And it's legal and it's supervised and.
Like at the end of the day, I can buy back the REITs that are not shares.
When you say who do you mean?
Or like the company at the end of the day, the REIT buy they're not shares, but since they sold back to be private.
Yeah, they could do that. Yes, exactly. Yes.
You say that they're, in practice, they are not, but
No.
they are traded, common stock.
No, they are not common stock. They are, in fact, they are perpetual certificates. They are not shares. But like the CPOs are not shares, right? They are traded as if they were shares. In fact, they are traded at the equity section of the stock exchange.
The investor can face that, I don't know, like
Sorry?
the investors can trade the
Certificate? Yes, yes, like a share. It can be resolved as many times as you like. As many times as you like, and someone is interested in buying it, right? They are not shares. They are not shares. They are not like stock class A or B or L or asterisk. They don't have that stock class. Yes?
What was the name for that security?
Perpetual certificate?
Please, could
Yes.
you repeat what is hybrid security?
A hybrid security shares characteristics of debt and equity at the same time. Shares characteristics of both. So some characteristics of debt and some other characteristics of equity.
What characteristics of the
The debt characteristic is that they, by law, they are obligated to distribute earning at least once a year. And that's something stock does not need to do, right? But they are perpetual, like shares. They trade like shares. They are registered and traded on the equity section of the broker of the stock exchange. So they are treated as shares, although they are not shares, not legally, right? But it is like CPOs. They are not shares. CPO is not really a stock class, right? But it is traded as if it were equity. Okay, as if it were. Yes.
If the perpetual certificates are perpetual, how many times do I have to invest money to get paid the dividends?
No, only once. You buy it only once.
It's so
If
expensive.
you keep it your whole life, you will be receiving dividends every quarter.
Okay,
Yeah, you only pay once.
not like,
But you can sell it and then rebuy it and sell it and buy another one if you like, right? So the security may be sold and as many times as market wants, okay?
Professor, you said that in Mexico, they are obligated to distribute earnings every year. In the US, they are as well obligated.
Yes,
In every country.
but it depends on the country, right?
Does the fact that it's perpetual make it like very expensive?
No, no. On the other hand, on the opposite, why? Remember that the price of a share will be the present value of all future dividends, right? So if you value something that has a perpetual horizon. In contrast with a security that has a 5-year horizon, this is gonna be cheaper than this one you show. Simply because of the discount. Right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't make them more expensive. If I can, I don't know if I can make this larger. Let me export it so that I better see. I want to show you what is the stock class for fibras in our country for REITs. Yes. In Spanish, the acronym, all this acronym, right?
Yes.
The acronym in Spanish is fibras. Fideicomiso, de inversión en bienes raíces. Okay? Yeah, they are very popular nowadays. But I'm gonna write a book to tell you that they are not so because they are not. But
I want serious teacher, don't tell me that.
they are good for
Yeah, okay.
they are good for the cash, but they do not keep the long-term value that we want to have, right? So you see, these are all fibras, right? The first fibra we had in our country was issued in 2011. The first fibra, the first REIT in the world was issued in the United States in 1963. We are only 50 years, behind, but what is 50 years, right? So, yeah, the first REITs in the world were issued having as an underlying asset the Standard & Poor's index, and the first fibra was Spider. Spider is the name for the REIT, for the fund that follows Standard & Poor's 500. Okay, so yeah, 1960s and 200. So fibra uno was the first REIT, the first public REIT, because there are REITs private, right? Many more than the public ones. But Uno was the first public REIT in our market. And if you look at the stock class, you will see that they always have a number, right? 13, 14, 17, 13, 71. The stock class for REITs in our country represent the numbers of the year in which they were issued, the last 2 digits of the year. So they don't have shares. They have this is them. Let me remember. Certificados fiduciarios de inversión. They don't have shares. They have certificates, which are traded perpetually and treated as shares. Okay. No, sorry, that's well. Certificado fiduciario de inversión. So that is a REIT. Did I make myself clearly understood?
It is
Very good. Because what normally happens, or what has happened in our country, is that the price of the share of the certificate decreases greatly as compared to the dividend. They pay high dividends, very high dividends, the highest dividends in our market, but the capital gain is really a capital loss. So remember, we should look for the total return of your investment. Total return is made up of 2 components, the capital gain and the dividend yield. If the capital gain is minus 10% or minus 12%, and you have an 8% dividend, still you are losing money. You're losing value, right? So it depends on what you want. If your objective is to keep the REIT for a very, 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 very long time, okay? But very long time means generations, right? Then, yeah, probably you won't pay attention to the loss in the price. But if you're thinking of short term or medium term, and the capital gain the capital loss is greater than your dividend, you will be losing money. You will be losing value. All right? Yes, that is my hypothesis based on observation. And now I have to prove my hypothesis I'm right. Hopefully I'm wrong, so you are, and your money is safe. Okay? Was it clear? Did I make myself clear? Great, so let's go over then. And the questions, did I answer all the questions? Are we happy with the answers of all questions up to number 12? Do we still have, what was the difference between fixed and floating rate debt? Can you repeat them? Daniela or Juan Manuel, can you repeat what was the difference between floating and fixed rate interest rates? That's number 12.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was hybrid security clear?
Yes.
So what is the difference?
Short-term debt is any debt that is due within 1 year, while long-term debt, any debt that is due after 1 year.
Okay, but fixed versus floating, please?
Okay. This, changes rate remains welcome for the anchor term of the debt. The rate is set at the time the borrowing is issued and doesn't change rate regardless of fluctuations in market interest rate. And totally, the year rate is not fixed and can change periodically based on the reference rate.
That's exactly the main, right? Fixed interest rate does not change over the life of the security. How do we call the life of the security? What is the financial term? Excellent, maturity. So a fixed interest rate does not change over the maturity of the bond or the debt. Okay, whereas floating interest rates changes over the maturity, over the life of the security. Can you give me an example of each, of both? Each of them. An example for a fixed rate?
So this was a fixed rate loan.
Go ahead, go ahead. Any idea of what could be a floating interest rate?
Certain signal change in basis of the interest rate.
CETES could be both. Floating and fixed. Under what conditions would CETES be a fixed rate, Andrea?
Where when it is UDI,
When it is UDI?
UDI,
No, CETES is different from UDI. You managed to see those figures? Is it enough? Is it large enough? Okay. Then this is the weekly option primary market. You will explain later what primary market is. Or in this case, the treasury bill of the Mexican sovereign government with a maturity of 28 days, because we have other maturities for CETES, right? CETES is the treasury bill. We use the term treasury bill usually for the CETES of the United States, right? But it is a bill. A bill is certificado, okay? Certificado de tesorería, treasury bill, okay? So this is our 1 month treasury bill. We don't have 1 month. They have 1 month. We have 28 days. So we don't follow exactly the same pattern of maturities. So these are the last 3 options. So this is the option for this week. Am I right? Yeah?
Yes.
What was August the 17th? What day of the week was that?
Monday. Oh, yeah, Saturday.
Yesterday. However, the option is not on Thursday. The option is on
Monday.
Tuesday. We have options for the domestic currency obligations for the sovereign government every Tuesday, but they are liquidated, paid on Thursday, every Thursday of the same week. And that is why the rate corresponds to the liquidation date. Okay, the issuance date is Tuesday. The liquidation date is Thursday. Okay, so this was the rate, the interest rate for the 28-day set for this week, 11.26% per annum. Per annum. Remember that interest rates are always reported in annual terms, unless explicitly said otherwise. So this is per annum. So this has been annualized. This is a nominal rate, not effective rate. Good that you know all those things, right? So that we can understand, Otherwise, how come? Okay, so how come if I am looking on the screen, teacher, and I see that every week the rate is different? How come you come to me and tell me it is fixed? Well, it's gonna be fixed for the 28 days, which is the maturity of the security. And that is the definition, isn't it? So for 28 days, you know for sure that correspondingly, you will have 11.26% of return in your investment. 11.26 per annum. And then you have to calculate the corresponding rate for 28 days. How do we do that? We take the 11.26%, we divide it by 360 days, and multiply it by the 28-day maturity. That is the standard percent. Why do we have 360? If this year we have 365, because the financial standard for debt securities is 360 days. Okay. Okay. We have a year, we have a calendar year with 365 or 366 days, but we have a financial year, and the financial year has 360 days. Okay.
So what gives in the series are floating rates.
Okay. So imagine I invested in CETES for 28 days. Okay, I have for sure fixed this rate, but I want to invest in CETES for the whole year. But I only want CETES for 28 days because I like short-term treasury bills. In a year of 364 days, you will have 13 investments in CETES 28 days. Every time you renew your investment, the interest rate will be different. This investment has a floating rate interest. If I invest in a fund that tells me they will pay me 110% of CETES, that is a floating interest rate fund. Unless they invest in CETES for 364 days. But that's not usual. Because what they like to do is to sell and buy so that they can charge you their commission. That's their job. That's how they make money. If you understand how a company makes money, then you can use that in your favor. But if you don't know, then you may be at their expense. And they will ask for that.
So I can have a series for 1 year with a base rate.
Yeah, for example, we have here SETE 364 days. SETE 28 is issued every week of the year. 1 year SETEs are not. Maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every 1 month, maybe this week, and then for the next 3 no. So it depends on the calendar. Banxico publishes a calendar every quarter so that we know when the auction will include what type of security. Okay. So this week they did not issue 1 year SETE, but last week they did. So I could have bought SETE last week, and I will have for sure 11.45% of return in my investment for 1 year, for a 12-month period. Okay, and then we have SETE for 3 months and for 6 months. We have, but they are very rare, SETE for 2 years. They are issued very infrequently, but still they do sometimes. They reissued SETEs for 2 years this year and last year, and there were decades they did not issue SETEs for 2 years. I don't remember up until last year. So in my whole life, I had not seen it. It was historically they had issued, but there was it was a long time they did not issue SETE for a 2 year period. Okay. All right, so far so good.
Yes.
So that is fixed and floating. Do you know what is the most commonly used floating interest rate in our country for debt securities?
The most common?
The interest rate that is used for floating rate securities that is most commonly used in our country.
Yeah.
But the rate, what is the rate of reference? A floating interest rate needs to have a reference rate, which we call benchmark.
La tasa de interés interbancaria más algo.
That's correct. So the benchmark is TIE. Tasa de interés interbancaria de equilibrio. And usually a credit with a floating interest rate will be quoted as TIE plus 450 BP. What is BP? Basis point. And what percentage is 450 basis points? 4.5%. Remember, 100 basis points equals 1%. How do we call this part of the floating rate? The benchmark is TIE. And the basis points is called? How do we call this? No? Premium starts with S. Spread. So a floating interest rate is composed by a benchmark and a spread. May the spread be negative?
Yes.
Yes, it may. Rare, but yes. Yes.
Yes.
Sandra?
TA is similar to LIBOR in London.
Yes. It's not the same, similar, yeah. Similar is the correct word. All right,
Can you repeat the meaning in Spanish, please?
for
TIE.
tasa de interés interbancaria de equilibrio is the interest rate that banks in Mexico charge each other for overnight deposits. For credits which last for 28 hours, the most 24 hours. Okay. is the interest rate that banks in our country charge each other for short-term overnight credits. Okay? You probably know, I hope you do, that banks worldwide, in our country as well, cannot have cash on hand when they close every day. So they should have a zero balance of cash every day. Did you know that?
Zero balance.
Zero balance cash. I as a bank, I cannot have cash on hand at the end of today.
That's by law or it's because?
It's by law, yeah.
But-
So if I have cash, I have to lend it to someone. And that's why Theo advises. And all banks need to net their cash balances because at the end of the day, they cannot have a cash balance, or they should have a cash balance equal to zero. Because that exposes the depositors at risk. Because that money is for the depositors, it's not for the shareholders of the bank. That money, the cash, is a property of the depositors. So the authority is protecting the depositors by not allowing the bank to use that money for derivatives or, I don't know, repos or, silly things like that.
But like the bank has a part of the depositors' money, like in a reserve that they need to have.
They
So-
have reserves. They need to have different types of reserves.
So can they, instead of lending that money, just put it in a reserve for the?
If they don't find a place where to place it, they have to send it to the Bank of Mexico, the central bank.
And then they send it back.
And then the other day, at the very beginning of the commercial day, they will send it back, transfer it back. Yeah.
Yeah, a bank can have deposit of another bank.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. In fact, all of them do. Banamex has an account for Bancomer, for Banorte, for Scotia. Yes. So that they can do this. I transfer the money I have left. You give me what you have remaining at the end of the day. That's part of the treasury job in the banks. Part of the activities of the treasury is that every day. What do we do with the money that we have left? What do we have to do? We have to end the day with a zero balance. Okay? What do we do? Yeah, it's quite stressing, but I'm sure some of you will find it very interesting. Okay, so far so good? Fixed versus floating. Clear?
Thank you.
All right. So who would be the next lucky team? We'll go from 13 to 19, okay? Right, where you from? So, Emiliano Rodriguez, Jesus Eduardo Botello. You have only two in your team?
Yes, but they use not here.
It's about. Call.
Let me call.
Okay, in the meantime, I'm gonna raise the board.
Teacher,
Yes.
I'm not sure if I understood the last point of the zero balance. I'm still because I remember like for I'm taking the money like in the bank, like in the how do you say cash?
The cashier.
The cash.
I mean, I'm confused because I work in a bank and I don't know what you mean with balance zero. I mean, yeah, I remember that we have like money, we have to save like everything. It wasn't important how much money we had. We just save the money and we leave. So I'm confused in that with your balance.
Yeah, I don't mean the money in the bank branch for the ATMs, right? I mean the cash balance for the balance sheet of the bank.
Oh, okay,
Right?
yeah. And that money I'm talking about, it will be like in the cash section, right, in the balance sheet?
Yeah, but that would be allocated to ATMs and that should stay in cash, right?
Teacher, just to last
Question.
Uh-huh.
In assets, so the bank cannot have in assets cash, but it can have like deposits in other bank accounts.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Miss, what is the relation between benchmark rate and this law?
And what?
This law balance zero in banks?
Nothing really. The benchmark is part of the floating rate. PA, LIBOR, prime rate.
Okay, what is the relation between PN and the banks doesn't have cash at the end of the day?
I don't remember how I arrived to the zero balance,
Because
but
they
then,
have to borrow every 24 hours. They just show.
because I was telling you that TA is the overnight rate. And then I remember that that arose because the zero balance rule, yeah. Okay, so the relationship is that TA is a benchmark. And TA arose as a need to have an interest rate among banks so that the money that they have left at the end of every trading day, every working day is placed at other banks. And that is the interest rate they will get or they will pay here. Okay? Yeah, I remember. Thank you. All right. So shall we start with what is LIBOR?
Yes. What does the acronym LIBOR stand for? LIBOR stands for London Interbank Offer Rate, and this is the interest rate at which major international banks lend dollars to each other. When LIBOR changes, the interest rate on your loan also changes. And the next question is, what is a Eurobond? International issues that are marketed outside any domestic jurisdictions are known as Eurobond and are usually made in one of the major currencies, such as the US dollar, the euro, or the yen. And the difference between Eurobond and a bond that is denominated in euros is that a Eurobond is not necessarily denominated in euros, but it can be. And in any currency, like, yes, in Mexico, if we have a bond in US dollars, it is a Eurobond.
Yes.
And a bond that is denominated in euros can't be denominated in other currency that is not euros. And now with Botello's time.
Okay. Question 16. What forms may a lender use to secure debt? List of these three forms. Well, the most common way is that they ask for their debt to be senior. That is the first to be repaid in case of failure or bankruptcy in the company. The senior debt must come first hand before sovereign debt and common stock, because we know debt is paid first before equity. So another way is the lender may ask the company to set aside some assets in case of something goes wrong. So they use these assets to secure its debt. That's how it's named, the debt that is secured. The debt that is covered is called secure, and the asset that you use for this is called collateral. And they also make sure ask the firm to not take any risk with their debt or make any operational risk. Maybe they use the bylaws of the firm, or I don't know, but they ask for not being risky to secure the debt and the repayment. Next question, it's number 17. Arrange the following securities in order of seniority: common stock, senior bond, as I already said. Senior bond goes first, then subordinated bond, and then common stock, because it's first debt and then equity. What is the difference between a warrant and a convertible bond? A convertible bond gives the owner the option to exchange their bond for a predetermined number of shares, while a warrant gives the option to the owner of buying shares at a set price before a date.
Okay. Number 19. Name at least two types of company obligations that are not treated as debt and why they are payment commitments, just like debt is. Accounts payable, they are simply obligations for goods that are already delivered. The owner of the firm makes promises that they will pay what they are given, although it is not considered debt because it's not a loan, it's goods already delivered. The lease of equipment is also not called debt, but you can call it debt because you are making the promise that you will return payments to the owner of the equipment. And so that's all.
Thank you very much. Did you know, probably you didn't, that LIBOR ceased to exist this past June? So June 30th, 2023, LIBOR ceased to exist.
And now it's all.
We don't have a substitute for LIBOR. Every domestic country is going to choose a risk-free rate, probably a new denomination of a risk-free rate that will substitute LIBOR.
And why, teacher?
In what? 2012? In the UK, well, LIBOR was a rate that was created in London, in the London banks. So used worldwide because you remember, do you know what euro dollar are? It's not the same as euro bonds. Well, one is a result of the other, right? There were some years in which the state imposed a very high tax for dollars held by foreigners in the US. So if I was Russian or if I was European in general and had a bank account in the United States denominated in dollars, the country, the US, would charge a very high tax for that. Okay, so London banks identify a need in the market. Okay, you can bring your dollars to my English banks, British banks, and I won't charge that tax. Okay, they were called euro dollars held in bank accounts in Europe, basically in London. Okay, but they were US dollars. Okay, and after the euro dollars, the euro bonds appeared. All right, so the British Bankers Association was in charge of the calculation of LIBOR. LIBOR was a rate like TM, obtained through options and of the main financial institutions, basically banks, and it is an average of those positions. All right. The authority found that banks, the British Bankers Association is an authority in the country, in the UK. They found that some banks were altering the positions in the LIBOR auctions, and they were trying to, in fact, they did. They manipulated the rate so that they could get a benefit on that. Okay. From the investigations, the decision was that they gave themselves a 10-year period in order to finish the calculation of LIBOR and give the market the opportunity to change, because LIBOR was a worldwide interest rate used worldwide for many transactions. So they gave this 10-year period so that every institution in the world could change all the terms and conditions of the securities and contracts they had, because the calculation was going to be stopped. Okay, so the reason was the manipulation of the rate, the authority taking action on that situation, and that was the reason of this decision. All right, so sad, isn't it?
I don't understand. Why the
No, the euro dollar is the beginning of the use of LIBOR. LIBOR had many denominations, but the main denomination of LIBOR was the US LIBOR. So the interest rate charged among English banks, British banks in US dollars for deposits or credits based in US dollars in England
But it was used like
worldwide.
worldwide. So
We in Mexico used it.
if a London bank needs to transfer a Swiss bank, they use LIBOR for the rate of.
For investments or for credits, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Did I make myself clear? Yeah.
And it was London because
It was not because of the euro dollars.
it was something against US, so that's why it's not New York interbank.
I don't think it was against the US. As I mentioned, it's an opportunity, right? There is a lot of millions of dollars held by foreigners. They pay a very high tax in the US, so they are being not very friendly to the investors, particularly Russian people. They started, in particular, the tax was approved because of the Russians having these accounts in the US holding US dollars. So it was really against the Russians. But then England, realized of this opportunity, and Russians were not the only people who had dollars, US dollars outside their countries. So they made a very profitable market out of that opportunity. Very profitable. Okay. Outstanding. All right. So that is LIBOR. So we used to have, not anymore because it doesn't exist anymore, but we used to have floating rate credits like this, right? LIBOR plus 150 basis points. LIBOR plus 275 basis points, whatever, right? Plus 25 basis points. So LIBOR was the benchmark for international credits, international loans.
teacher, was it mandatory, the use of labor?
No,
So were there
absolutely free.
any other alternatives? Like if Mexico wanted to borrow money,
Yes, they could borrow directly from the United States at the prime rate or any other rate.
And nowadays, what is being used?
In the US, they use something that is called, I have it here, is secured overnight financing rate. That's for the US, but every country is going to choose secured overnight financing rate. So every country is going to use one. We have one that is called Mexico. You know,
I don't need Mexico use.
it's not that we only use it, but it is it makes reference of the Mexican rate, right? So like the interest rates that are charged in our country, but anyone could use it. All right.
Yeah.
What else? Any question on the tranche between questions 13 and 19? No?
how can a person secure that their debt is senior?
Senior means that whenever the company makes payments or if the company were bankrupt, the first who gets paid are the secure obligations.
Yes, but how do they make sure?
In the prospectus of the bond, it's stated clearly. Okay. The prospectus is like the birth certificate of the bond, so kind of. Yeah, like our birth certificate, it is our identity, right? Well, the birth certificate for a bond is called prospectus. The prospectus tells what are the terms and conditions of that bond. And it is stated if it is senior or junior, or it has collateral, or if it is convertible or callable or puttable, or what type of bond it is. What is the interest rate, if it's going to be fixed or floating? What happens if the day of payment is a Saturday, or what happens if the day of payment is a holiday? Everything is stated there, everything. Okay, what taxes you are going to pay if you are foreigner, what taxes you are going to pay if you are a municipal government. Everything that has to do with the operation of the bond is stated in the prospectus. Okay? All right? Okay, so, yes.
The warrant.
Oh, the warrant and then
The
convertible bond. What is the question?
And the difference is that the warrant you can buy to an specified price, right? The convertible bond you only change change it to a share, but at the price at the moment of the share in the market, right? Or
Yeah, you're right. A warrant is a security. A convertible bond is another security. Yep. If I buy a warrant, then the warrant states that I, for example, can buy shares from America Mobile at a price of, I don't know, I'm gonna invent 21.17 pesos per share. And the maturity of the warrant is, let's say, the December 30th this year. Okay? If I decide to exercise my warrant, then I have to pay the exercise price. 21.17 pesos is called the exercise or strike price. So maybe the warrant cost me 10 pesos or 100 pesos, whatever, okay? If I want to get the shares of America Mobile, I have to pay extra 21.17 per share, extra. Okay? A warrant is an option, which is a derivative security, a derivative instrument. It's one of the families of the derivatives instruments. Derivatives have options, futures, swaps. Futures are like cousins of forwards. So the warrant is a type of security which is a derivative. All right. The convertible bond is also a security, but it's a type of debt. It's not a derivative. So we have equity, we have debt, we have derivatives, and we have other. Okay? If I pay, say, 107 pesos or dollars for the convertible bond, and I want to exchange the convertible bond because it is my option, it is my right, then I just convert, divide the price of the bond over the conversion price, remember that? Which is the price of the share, and I will know the number of shares I will get. I don't have to pay any cent extra.
How many shares can you buy with one warrant?
Depends on the terms of conditions of the warrant. It may be 1, it may be 10, it may be unlimited.
The warrant is made like between me and the financial intermediate that has the stocks, or it can be made between me and the company.
Yeah, usually a warrant is issued by a company. the same as the convertible bond,
Okay.
issued directly by the company. You may find it through an intermediary, but it's issued by the company. Yes,
Warrant used to have underlying asset.
the underlying asset of the warrant in this case is the American mortgage share. AMXM is the ticker for American mortgage. AMX is the symbol for the company. L is the stock.
It is exercise at the moment that you should set the exercise price. Or
We will review this later in the semester, but you would normally exercise your warrant when the price of the market is higher than your exercise price. You would buy at 21 if in the market it is at 25. Because if in the market you find it at 19 pesos, you won't exercise your warrant. So you will exercise your warrant, which is an option, a call option, whenever the market price is higher than your strike price.
But if it reaches the strike price, but it keeps going up, can I just wait until it reaches the max?
Yes. With the risk of the price going down, right? Yes. Mhm. It depends on the terms and conditions of the warrant. Sometimes they are European and sometimes they are American, which means if I have a European option, I only have 1 day to exercise. During this maturity, only 1 day, the maturity. If it is American, I have any day, the period. So I have to go and check what the terms and conditions of the warrant are. They are usually European. Okay. So you only have 1 chance at the maturity date. That's it. All right. So far, so good. Did I answer the question, also? Any other question?
Teacher, you said that the swap is a type of warrant.
I know a type of derivative. Derivatives are options, futures, swaps. Yes.
I have a question. The warrant has a premium or something that costs
Yeah, the price is the premium.
the premium.
That's a premium. La prima. Es el precio. You pay the premium plus the exercise price. In the convertible bond, you only buy the bond and then you exchange it. That's the difference. And they are, as I hope I explained it, they come from different types of securities. They impose different risks, right? All right.
Yes.
Any other question? From questions 13 to 19? No? Is everything clear?
Yes.
All right. So the final team that I will present questions 20 to 27 is Fernando Emanuel, Dayana, and Juan Manuel. Yes. How are we doing? In the chapter understood? You're about to finish. I think on Monday we're gonna start with the portfolios.
Oh.
Yay! I'm sure you will like it. You will like it. I'm sure.
The school should give us money to put in practice all these.
I'm gonna hide
You know, we used to have a tool which it was and it was virtual, it was not money for real, but we had accounts for every student. We invested, or everyone invested in the different studies over the semester, as long as we were reviewing the performance. At the end, we had a winner, so then once the website. It's because before we used to have a subscription to InfoSec, like InfoSec able staff.
It's because I remember we had, like, when it was pandemic, there was, a concurso, a contest with who speak with the same like idea of virtual accounts, like enters using the why you have a code and the winner got like no, like 50% scholarship in Rectoria.
You have any connection? To get access to a class. Even before this. Great.
Well, the first question is why equity is a receivable claim? Because it participates in upside and downside of the business after debt claims are satisfied, which means that first they have to pay debt, and then if there is still money, you can pay the equity. That's why it's a receivable thing. The next question is, what is a financial market? A financial market is a market where they trade financial assets and are issued and trade, as I say. And the next question is,
So what is the difference between primary market and secondary market? In the primary market, all the shares are issued for the first time, and it's exclusive because it is not an open market. Only like selected shareholders have the access to buy the shares for the first time. And the secondary market, it's just like the stock market. It's an open market where anyone who have the money can buy shares that are available in the market. It's just like a transaction money per share. Question is, how are securities traded in organized exchanges and how it is different from being traded in the over-the-counter market? Well, in the organized exchanges, it's just centralized. It's a connection between lenders and borrowers, but everything is centralized through the financial intermediary. For the other hand, the over-the-counter market, like the lender has to go directly to the counter of the borrower. So there could be a transaction. And these are various types of investment funds. We have mutual funds, closed funds, the ETF, exchange traded fund, hedge fund, and pension fund. And the next question is, how does a mutual fund work? And what the teacher said is they take the money of the investors and invest in a market stock change or what. And the next one is, what is the main objective of an exchange trade fund? And an ETF is a portfolio of stock that can be bought or sold in a single trade. And they should make that the ETF prices tracks the price of the underlying index or basket. And the next one is, what is the main difference between a bank and investment fund? The teacher already said that is that the banks can invest the savings of the people, and the investment fund and the investment fund can invest the money. And also is other difference, and is the banks provide banking service and loans, and the investment funds no. It's part of the difference. Is the last one?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for taking the time of doing the presentation.
It's mine.
Do you have any question on the last part of the questionnaire? Are you going to make a clarification between primary and secondary market? The main difference between primary and secondary market is who gets the proceeds of the issuance. ¿No proceed? The proceedings, resultado. Okay. In the primary market, you have the issuer, the intermediary, investors who are the market. In the primary market, I'm going to use as an example shares, but maybe debt. Okay, we have primary market for both debt and equity. Okay? So the issuer sells shares. The intermediary is the connection with the investors. So the shares are transferred to the investors. The investor pays for the shares in cash, and cash is received by the issuer. The intermediary will retain from both the issuer and the investors a fee, which is a commission. Okay? Or a fee. Okay, it's synonym, fee or commission. So in the primary market, not only the security is issued for the first time, but the money that is raised through the issuance gets to the issuer, the company, right? The issuer is a company. An individual cannot issue securities, can ask for a loan. That's different, right? In the secondary market, you have the market, which is constituted by the investors. You still have an intermediary. And you have the market selling to the market. Maybe Banorte sells shares of the issuing company to me. So the money still, there is a transfer of shares. Sell shares, you get the shares, but the money does not get to the issuing company. The money is received by the reseller. This market is a reseller, un revendedor. So there is no new issuance of securities. These shares have already been issued in the primary market. So the second time the shares are sold, that's the secondary market. In the primary market, but both may be the case that the issuance is first offered to VIP clients and then to the rest of the market. But still, they are both primary markets. For example, CETES Directo is primary market for CETE. But CETES Directo is offered to the rest of the market after the market makers, the large financial institutions, buy CETE directly from Banxico. But both people investing in CETES Directo and market makers, they both buy from the primary market of CETE. Okay? Is it clear the difference? Because the main difference between primary and secondary is who gets the money raised. In the primary market, the money raised goes to the issuing company or the issuer, if it is a government, not a company, right? But in the secondary market, the exchange of cash is made between investors. Okay? Remember, a type of investor may be an intermediary, a bank, a brokerage house, a pension fund, an investment fund. They are also investors in the market.
Someone in the primary market can be both intermediary and investor, or there has to be an intermediary and investor separate.
In Mexico, we need intermediaries. It is not possible to sell and buy securities without intermediaries.
So if I am by so Banorte, and I can also act intermediary, but
For myself, yes.
I need like another bank to help me with buying the share from an issuing company.
If I am the underwriter, soy el agente colocador, if I am the underwriter of the securities, I don't need another intermediary. But if I am not the underwriter, I will need the intermediary because the underwriter is the one who can sell, is the connection between the investor and the seller. So for example, let's say Lala issues more shares. Lala is the issuing company and they choose Value as the underwriter of the issuance. And let's say Afore Banorte 21 wants to buy some shares from Life. Well, they have to go through Value because they are the underwriters. Sometimes there are more than one underwriter. Maybe it's Value, Banamex, and another one.
And if Value wants to buy the shares,
They can keep them. Yeah, they can keep them. Yeah.
And was missing that.
Yes, they can buy it and keep them. That's not their job usually. They will buy them and then resell them. Because that's how they make money, through fees. The money, the revenues made by financial intermediaries is from fees, not from investments. That's their role in the market. Okay? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Teacher, another doubt about the questions.
Mhm.
I have two. The first one is, the mutual funds, an example can be like the S&P500.
That's an ETF.
Okay.
Mhm. Do you understand the difference, or do you want me to explain why is it an ETF and not a mutual fund? Do we understand the difference between ETFs and mutual funds?
ETFs follows an index. Funds is like a trust.
It's more like an investment fund, or not necessarily a trust, right? Remember, trust is fideicomiso, right? That's an investment fund, right? Mhm. Yeah.
It's then that mutual funds only like collect money and invest on behalf of.
The only difference, that's not the only difference, but the main difference between a mutual fund and ETF is the mutual fund will create its own strategy.
Okay.
It's called an active strategy. Active strategy because they will choose the securities. This 2% for this equity, for these shares, 3.5% for these bonds, 2.1% for this. That is an active strategy, okay? That's the mutual fund.
Mhm.
But the ETF is a passive strategy. They just follow the composition of an index. Let me see.
But in both, I can buy like
Shares, yes.
shares. Okay.
Mhm. Nasdaq iShares is an ETF. Before it was called Nasdaq O2, right? And then there is a different fund manager now, and it's called Nasdaq iShares. This is an ETF that replicates the índice de precios y cotizaciones. So the proportion of the shares that the index has is absolutely and perfectly replicated by the ETF. If there is 11.11% of American Mobile, NAFTA will have 11.11% of the money they collected invested in American Mobile. If there is 7.9% of Televisa, they will have 7.9% of shares of Televisa. And whenever the index is rebalanced, they have to rebalance their portfolio as well. So what you see as a result is that if the IPC increases 2%, then NAFTA will increase 2%. If the IPC decreases 5%, NAFTA will decrease 5% as well. So it's like a mirror. The difference is that I cannot buy IPC. No one can. Not even Carlos Slim, right? Because it's an index. It does not exist. It's not tradable. Okay? But NAFTA is a fund. There are certificates of the fund which may be traded, which are traded. I can buy it. I don't have on my own to go and buy 37 different shares in different percentages and keep track every quarter of what they do and change and rebalance. I don't have to do it. The fund will do it for me. The ETF will do it for me. They will charge a fee for that. The return will be diminished by a percentage of the commission for the manager. Of course, that's their job. They are saving you that time so that you have time to come to class and listen to me. All right? Okay?
Why we call it passive? Sorry.
Because you don't have to think of how many shares you need or what percentage. You just follow what the index says. Right?
So
You're like lemmings.
the purpose of the index is just guide.
Pardon me?
So the purpose of the index is just guide. So you can include it.
Well, the purpose of the index is to give you information about the performance of the underlying assets on the index. So the purpose of the IPC is to let us know if our equity market is performing better, if the companies are increasing value or decreasing value, right? If the market is getting narrower or larger, right? That's the purpose of the index. Right? Mm-hmm. Any other questions? So far, so good?
Yes.
Enough. Yeah, I felt like that. It sounded like that. All right, thank you very much. See you on Monday.